Hi, Susan, and welcome to the End of Life Journey and Beyond, the Sands of Time. My name is Lisa Strahs-Lorenc, and I'm a bereavement specialist. And it's good to see you again, Susan.
So nice to see you, Lisa. My name is Susan Capurso. I'm an end-of-life doula and legacy specialist. And we're here to bring some valuable information your way. And today's topic is how to begin a conversation about what they want during the end of life. So this is really regarding a family member that's about to go through the end of life process and having the conversation early on, just like we talk about pre-planning with everything else in our life, but having that conversation now versus when you're in a medical crisis or end up in an emergency room, right? And why this is so important. So, planning for your final days is hard for anybody, but it's a gift. It really is a gift, I believe, Lisa, that you can give to your caregivers, that you can give to your family, anybody that's surrounding you. We're all going to die. We talk about this in every video. This is what our series is about. It's a universal experience for all of us, but not everybody has a good story, and there are good stories that surround end of life, believe it or not.
Yes.
So it's important to know that how we want to spend our final days, the little questions, the little details that surround how we think it'll be, where we want to be. Just the topic of conversation in general is so important. And I'm a big, I always talk about this all the time, that it's so important, Lisa, because it really changes up the whole experience. And it helps the person who's passing, number one, it helps them feel reassured, and safe.
Yes.
And comforted during this fearful time, right? Helps them, but then it also helps their family members to grieve a little bit better and be less depressed.
Yes. It's the issue is really communication.
That's right.
We need to understand what people feel, what they think, what they want. And that brings people together, whether it's friends, whether it's family members, whether it's other people who are in that person's life. But it's not knowing and not understanding that really is the biggest obstacle. It puts a barrier, and people set up that barrier. And I understand, the fears and having gone through it with my husband and with my mother and all. But if we can communicate and we can talk about the feelings that we all have or what the desires we have, at the end, it's going to free up.
It does. It does. And it takes a big weight off everybody's shoulders, right? And can make the whole experience be a little bit less overwhelming. And know that this has to be one of the most important conversations that you have with your loved one ever. Yes. This is the biggest. This is the final, right?
Yes. I feel like it doesn't have to be at the very end either. Like, I have friends who have different diagnoses and different things going on, and you don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows what the next day is going to bring. So to put off the conversation till it has to be, or to the very end, and that's it. And I understand fears. That's why people don't want to write, a will. I get that. But the problem is that it leaves everybody up in the air about what you really want and what's important to you.
That's right. That's right. And, I know for a fact that most people at the end of their life want to talk about their end of life wishes and end of life things, but they don't. Mostly only, and I read a statistic that only about 27% of people do talk about it with their families. And they don't because the person who's dying doesn't want to burden their loved one. They don't want to burden their family. They think they're hurting them and they're digging the knife in deeper. And you're not.
Just the opposite, actually.
Just the opposite.
Because
that's right.
The more you put up your wall and the more you, isolate yourself, the more people are going to feel that you've abandoned them, that you're leaving already, and that you don't want them in your life anymore. And at the end, that's so important to keep them there. Keep them with you.
You know, and just to throw this statistic out there as well, most people want to die at home,
That's right.
no matter what.
That's right.
And yet, at least 60% of people die in a hospital. And I'll tell you why that is. Most people don't realize this. It's all about fear. You know your loved one's going to die. And this is a big thing that end-of-life doulas do bring into the family home, okay? Because you know they're going to die, but you don't know what to do. And we get in crisis mode, fight or flight. What do we do? Oh my God, call 911. Now, when a doula is with you and you with your family, and people like you now who will be educated, you'll know that there's nothing to be done. If there is no more end-of-life care and you don't want them to be intubated and you don't want their heart resuscitated, okay, then there are certain things that are going to happen at the end of life for every single person. Our bodies shut down in the same way, no matter what kind of diagnosis you have. Usually, there are a couple exceptions, right, that are worse than others, but usually our bodies begin to shut down in the same way. So one of the safety measures that a doula brings into a family is that he or she educates them early on, right? Part of the pre-planning process, so you know. And then when that time comes, that's when I can go up to a family member and hold their hand and say, hey, remember, we talked about this a couple months ago? You know, we talked about, their throat muscles getting a little softer and weaker, and the noises that you're going to hear, and the way that the breathing starts to change. And by me doing that with a family member, it's so reassuring.
Yes.
It's so reassuring to know that they don't have to pick up the phone and call 911.
Yes. Yes. Let's talk some personal stuff about the conversations. When my husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, I knew it was a deadly disease. And you always have hope. And you always, hope that perhaps something will happen and a miracle will happen, everything else. But we already started the conversation. What do you want? How much do you want? What are you willing to do? What do you want me to do? Those are so important because I was able to be there and fulfill his wishes. And, when we talked about the hospital thing, and when we said, if there's nothing else a hospital can do, he said, I want to go home. And we agreed to that. Yeah. And that's exactly what we did. And exactly keeping him at home and keeping him comfortable and having friends come and all. But the point is that the conversation happened when he was even just diagnosed.
Right.
And we all want everything to be okay, but we can't just close our eyes and say, okay, so now we don't have to talk about anything.
Right.
Because you do. And that's the most important time to discuss it before we get to that desperate stage. We talked about
the crisis or the 911, and you're in the emergency room now, and all these questions are being thrown at you, and you don't know what to say or do. Maybe the person can't speak at that point. So it's craziness, and it doesn't have to be.
That's right.
It doesn't have to be.
That's right.
It's stress and fear. That's what it's about. So, you can think about the conversation before you have that conversation with your loved one. Think about the things you might want to ask or talk about, what you might need to research and learn about before you have that conversation, so you know a little bit more. The things that you want to bring up, you can talk about, bring up more easier parts of the conversation, like finances, or making sure that, particular family members or pets are being taken care of, and easier topics. And then you can get into a little bit more intimate detail. Things like, this is a really good question. And they teach, I'm a hospice volunteer as well. So I go through their strict trainings, every year to meet the state's criteria. And one of the big questions that we always talk about is, what matters the most to you right now? What matters the most to you at the end of your life? How do you see it? You know, where is the space that you're going to be in? Do you want to be taken to the hospital? You know, would you rather be here with your family and friends around you? Or do you want nobody here? You know, they're tough questions. You know, they're easier for us because we speak about it often, Lisa, but these are tough questions to really think about. And you know, will they be more comfortable at home? And just by that little conversation and that back and forth talk, you're going to know what their wishes are, and you're not going to make that phone call to end up in the hospital, right?
Yes, yes. And everything else in between too. We're not even talking about the very end. We're talking about how people want to live the rest of their days.
That's right.
So what do you really want in those days, whatever it is, days,
Right,
weeks,
right.
months? Because even if it's hospice, you know, you can be talking about more than weeks, you know, so
Right.
what kind of
Another big conversation to have is, who do you want to be, you know, your primary decision maker? And you don't have to say it as formally as that. And maybe you think you know, but if there are a lot of siblings, you know, and that isn't designated, it's going to just cause family turmoil. So when you have that conversation, then one person is designated. I don't know if you watch This Is Us. This Is Us. You don't watch that. If anybody has a chance to watch that last episode when their mom Rebecca had passed, it was so beautiful because she went through things in her mind as if she was on a train ride, I think it was. And different people were coming in and out, and different people in her life. And even the family members at home. But the episode before that was when she sat down with them and she says, you know, she had dementia, Alzheimer's, however it was progressing, and she knew it. And she was remarried, but she had her children all there as well. And she said to her children, this is an important meeting, and I want you to hear me, and I want you to pay attention to what I'm about to say. I have to think of one person that I want to be my primary decision maker when it comes to the end of my life and the things I have to decide on. And she chose her daughter versus her sons. And they all looked at each other like, what? You know, why are you picking her over me? And, you know, and she explained to them, you know, the reasons why. And if you can ever catch those last two episodes, I think it's really, really important to see how, you know, they worked it out on their end. But it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. So again, those days, weeks, months, whatever it is, so important to share with your family and your friends what you want and what, you know, what this is your life and this is your day. How's that?
Right.
And they all really need to be within your own heart and within your own wishes. And I'm not just talking about care. I'm talking about how you choose to do your days and what you want to do, how you enjoy yourself, what's important, you know, whether it's movies, whether it's a trip if you can make something, whether it's being with people you haven't seen in a long time, whatever that is. Those things that are meaningful.
Have the conversation.
You got to communicate that.
There's a website, and I haven't looked at it recently, but I know that it's a very good website. It's called The Conversation Project. You know, I believe you've heard of this before. I don't know if it's .com, .net, or whatever, but there's really a lot of helpful information on there. And, you know, some of the questions that they suggest that you ask to start conversations like this is, I need your help with something. You know, I need your help with something. I need to think about the future. You know, will you help me? You can reverse this, though, if you're a family member right now, you know, as far as I need to think about your future. How can I help you set things in place? I was thinking about what happened to Aunt Mary and the way that it happened at the end of her life. And we don't want that in our family. And it made me realize that maybe we could do things a little bit better. So let's get some plans in place. Even though you're okay right now, I'm worried that we might not be prepared later on. So let's talk about a couple of these things. And you might get pushback. You
Sure.
really might get pushback because even though I gave you that statistic about people wanting to talk about end of life, your parent or loved one may not be the one who wants to.
That's right.
So
Or
they'll
the reverse,
avoid it
or
at
the
all
reverse,
costs.
or the reverse, that you want to, but they're not ready, and they say, "Oh, Mom, don't be ridiculous," So,
Right.
okay.
Well, this is why we're talking to people today, to tell them not to be the reverse and to take the baby steps. And it doesn't have to be all deep and sad and in a one big conversation. There could be little pieces of the puzzle along the way. And you could make suggestions. Say, remember how grandma died? That was hard for everybody. I want your time to be different than theirs. How can we do that? What's your idea? Do you want us to get together and have a little celebration and dress in white and listen to classical music? Or do you want nothing? Do you want the old fashioned, come back to the house and let's have a casserole? And that's okay. No matter what it is, there's no right or wrong decision, right?
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
But it is the communication of all of it. So just like every communication with a family member or with friends, it's a conversation. That's what it is.
But it's so important that you have to make sure not to have these conversations when you think they might be the right time, but they're really not the right time. Like everybody's getting together for Thanksgiving now. Oh, good. They'll all be here. Let's have that conversation. Sometimes are not the right time. So you have to figure that out on your own. When's the best time, a quiet time, a gentle conversation. Because that's when I think you'll have the best communication with somebody.
When the timing is better.
Not to be overpowering or overwhelming and say, well, what about this? And what about that? No, you want to ask open-ended questions, really, so that they give you, their choices and their wishes and things that they want to do. But the point is, don't make it so vague either. You want to say, how do you see the last phase of your life? How do you see that happening? Well, I see, and you could say in the conversation how you would like yours to be. Right? That's a way to open up discussion. If I told you some of the things I wanted,
Yeah.
And nothing's too big or too little. I mean, you want a marching band, you have a marching band. If you want nothing and nobody around you and you just want peace, do you want somebody to read to you? If you can't speak anymore, when you're in your transition stage, what would you like me to read to you? What kind of music can we play that you love? And we think we know all the answers to those questions, but we don't always. So it's nice to, what it is, Lisa, for the person with the diagnosis, it really is, like I said earlier on, it's reassurance, it's safety. It makes you feel safe and secure. Dying is the second leading fear. I say that all the time, worldwide, globally, not just here in New York, or, it's a big fear that everybody has. So the more discussion, the more communication, the more we can say, hey, what do you want? Tell me, I want to know. The less fear, the less anxiety, and the more beautiful experience the whole family is going to have.
It brings people together.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And it's hard. And we're not saying it's not hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Right.
We get that. We understand that. But it's the regrets. Nobody wants to live with regrets. If only I had known they wanted this. If only I had done this, they might have been happy. If only I had nothing, on and on. How do you live with that?
Right.
I don't want to live with that. Nobody does.
Right.
And it's our responsibility as people who love other people, or people who, are caring for other people, to make sure that their wishes and their
Right.
thoughts are known. And whoever they select, because maybe they're comfortable with one person, like you said, and the other person they're not comfortable. But whoever it is, they need to make sure that they communicate, and that they, that everybody knows.
Right. And you have the power to open that door.
That's right.
When you have a loved one who's passing. I wasn't going to bring this up in this video, but I think it's really pertinent right now. I was with my Aunt Patty recently, and she has bookshelves filled with books that a lot I've sent her over the years, others she's gotten on her own. And she always says to me, okay, go shopping, pick what you want, so you have things to read on the plane. And I do. And I'm like a little kid in a candy store, because I love nonfiction books and I love to always be learning. So this book is called, and jot this down if you can, it's called Five Wishes, and it's by Gay Hendricks. And I believe he's a psychotherapist, psychologist, or something. Okay. But he has it's a small book. It's one of these 4x6s, only 125 pages. But he has a little project for all of us to do. And it's really kind of neat. And he talks about, he really puts you in the place of being on your deathbed. Okay, so now you're about to die, and somebody says to you, if your life could have been a total success, why was your life a total success, or why not? What were the things why was your life not a total success? He lays it out very nicely. And you come up with those things now as healthy and vibrant people. You come up with a list of 5 of these things. Imagine yourself on that deathbed, though, and you're thinking, my life was not a total success because I wish I'd blank. I wish I'd blank. So you got to give it some deep thought. But in the end of this practice that he does, you're actually now, like, we're the ones that would have wrote that as if we were dying. We now take that sentence and says, and rewrite it and say, my life is a total success because I'm now successful, and I'm now, feeling abundance in my life every day. Whatever those things are to you. And he reverses that conversation. But it had me reflecting, and it really caused deep thought, because one of the things I always hear about and read about, especially there's a lot of books out there by chaplains and pastors and ministers and who talk to people, on their deathbed, and they all have regrets. They all have regrets because of the things that they didn't get to do. So I think maybe, we should have a video about this, because it's really, really important for us to figure out what those regrets would be at this point in our life and switch them around and try and change them up. So it was a very interesting book. I won't go into that more, but it was a fun little exercise for me. That's all.
Bottom line, don't live with regrets.
Yeah.
We were just talking the other day about Irma Bombeck, who said that she cleaned her house too much. If she had only spent more time with her children and with her family. And I'm for that.
And that's one of the big regrets, and especially with men. I hear it a lot with men and women, but men that, they're out there with their careers, and more women do stay home, caring for the children, but not even these days, right? You have women that are out there with amazing professions, but that work 60 hours a week, and that is one of the biggest regrets that you hear from people. Like, why didn't I spend more time?
Yeah.
Why didn't I prioritize that and make my work week a 30-hour work week, or whatever that number may be for you? I don't know. But so anyway, getting back to having conversations,
Yeah.
there will be regrets
Sure.
that you hear. So this is a good time for these discussions. You know, be that good listener that we always talk about, you know, and maybe bring up some of the positives. If it's too late to change those things
Sure.
up.
Sure.
Right, but maybe turn the conversation a little bit and bring up some of the positives that kind of turn that around, because I think that when a person leaves the world, they want to feel like they've come full circle. And that's why I titled my book that, Coming Full Circle, because I've been with people at the end of their life who are angry,
Sure.
you know, and bitter, and not everybody will come full circle, and not everybody will accept what's about to happen, you know, but you could try, you know, you can try and be the one for them.
Yeah.
Right?
Beautiful conversation, very difficult, conversation. But, as always, we're here to discuss things that people are thinking, and we're saying them.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get out everything that really is important in people's lives at the end and after.
Yeah. And another thing we don't often mention, but really, if there's a topic that you have in your life of concern that maybe you didn't see through our videos, please reach out. You know, send us a text. Our phone numbers are here, you know, or give us a call and let's have a conversation, because we would really love to bring in, you know, topics that we don't think about sharing.
Right. That's
you
right.
know, on our end, but that we'd love to, because if they're important to you, they're important to many people.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, you too. So your work, you've mentioned a few times. Why don't you tell them also about the new ceremonies that you do as well?
Yeah, so I recently got a certification in family grief ceremonies, and I'm so excited about it, because it really is a foundation for the family to come together and start their healing process after they lose a loved one. Okay, so I take that back from my own experiences of the many people that I've lost. And there were two choices for me. There was one-on-one counseling, which I didn't want to do. I didn't feel it was right for me. So I tried a bereavement group, and bereavement groups are wonderful for so many people. I would never, ever knock them. The particular one I went to was not for me. It made me feel more sad and more overwhelmed and burdened. I think because of the circumstances of the many losses that were in my group, and it was not making me feel better. And I don't like to quit things, you know, so I gave it a chance and I stayed. Had I tried another group, it probably would have been wonderful. You know, it was just this particular one.
Yeah.
So in turn, I felt very alone. And what I want to say about these family grief ceremonies, it's a gathering in your home. It's a 2-hour gathering, and there's 20 different tools that I bring in, and I go through one at a time. And it's really to communicate, to connect with your family, to talk about stories, to share memories. There's 3 things on the invitation that you're required to bring to the ceremony that night. And everybody participates in the ceremony. And it's just a beautiful thing. And I like it because we talk about ways how the family can stay connected. In my family, and this is why I'm so passionate about doing this, my family disconnected. Okay, so one family was so burdened and distraught with the loss of my husband that they moved out of state. They really sold the house, didn't want to be bothered with anybody, and moved. Okay, there were a couple people that had addiction problems and alcoholism, and different people for different losses, you know, with my sister, with my brother. They moved out of state too, taking care of the other kids, and there was no connection. And that having that no connection when you lose a big giant presence in your family is not good. It makes the situation even sadder.
Yes.
You know, and even more overwhelming for you when you're left alone
Yes.
to deal with these things, right?
Yes.
So I don't see that anybody offers that anywhere. And this is what brings me such excitement. After the 2-hour wake, we go home and we're expected to just learn how to grieve and mourn and get over this most of the time by ourselves. So if I can bring that family together and do these wonderful, amazing things to celebrate and honor their loved one in the beautiful, comforting, safe space of your own home, your living room or your dining room, that's my intention.
That sounds beautiful. And also talk about the healing garden, because that's another really unique.
Oh, yeah. So the healing garden, it's really a bowl filled with Long Island stones that I go and I find myself, and they're beautiful sayings on them. I have 5 different topics. They're inspirational and themes. So there's a sentence on each regarding what the theme is. So you can give one to a friend for grief, a friend who's lost somebody. You can give one to somebody who's just suffered a pet loss. That's very big. There's one for somebody with a cancer diagnosis when you have a friend and you just don't know what to say or do. This is a nice gift for them. And there's instructions on there, how to meditate on the phrases for 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night, and just to help you sit, be still, and breathe, and help you reflect and get through this process. I just started a new one for caregivers, because who takes care of the caregiver, and they need to feel appreciated and loved as well.
Yeah.
So all those you can find on my website that you see up above. Let's hear about some of your things, Lisa.
So I am a bereavement specialist, and people say, so what is that? So it's somebody who understands the bereavement process and helps people go through their journey. And everybody, I keep seeing posts, I need help because I can't get up in the morning. I need help because I don't know what to do now. I'm lost. I'm the person. I just read something about what do I do with the clothing? It's been months and everybody says, how come I haven't gotten rid of the clothing? What people need to understand is that everybody reacts differently. Everybody goes through this differently, and I respect people's differences and I help them through the process. But not only that, but help them also still celebrate the loved one or the person who's not here anymore. And that's so important. Yes, the person is gone physically, but I always believe and will always believe that you can keep them in your heart in so many different ways. And I have many different tools and activities for that. So I give that as part of myself. And also, I love doing workshops. And so workshops to be able to help people with different processes, like an online memorial site, that's a big one for me. That's a really great way of remembering somebody and keeping them right there in front of a lot of people, even though it's online. So, I enjoy that. And both you and I, of course, have books that, that can be found on Amazon and all. And then we have our course and a few workshops as well. So we're dedicated to this, and it's wonderful that you and I have been doing this for more than a year, and that there's so many topics and so many conversations that we still have and that are very relevant to people, even though it's very hard for them to find these. I mean, somebody tells me about somebody, who suffered a loss, and I direct them over to our site, and some just can't watch a video about this. They can't watch what
and for others, it's helpful and valuable information.
That's right.
So before we close, can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
Because you said something a minute ago about, your loved one, their presence will always be around you. Okay. Even after they pass. And something big happened to me on Sunday. And I'd just gotten back from my trip from Florida. And I'm sitting on my back deck and I'm so tired. It was a draining, exhausting week for me. And my 25-year-old just joined an adult softball league. And the week before was his first game. And I said, well, should I, do you want me to come to your game? Because they were all in sports, both of my boys, forever, different sports. And we were always the biggest tailgaters. And my husband was the biggest everything when it came to their sports games. So he says, no, you know what? He goes, we're men now. He goes, I don't know if parents are going to come. He goes, let me feel it out the first time, and then I'll let you know. It says, okay, no problem. So now here's the second game. I'm sitting out on the deck resting. I'm so tired from the week. He comes out with his girlfriend. They both have their jerseys on. They have all their equipment. And I says, well, Jess, did you want me? Oh, I forgot to tell you. He goes, last week, all the moms and dads were there. And you know a lot of them. And they were asking, where's your mom? Why didn't she come?
Wow.
So now I said, really? I said, okay, well, good. So I'll come to one of your games. He's playing a lot of games over the season. And in my head, I'm saying, no, not this one. I'm tired. I had an old T-shirt on. I'm just like, oh, I need my rest for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I felt this big breeze. It was really hot, but I feel this big breeze. And I hear my husband say to me, are you kidding me? Get up and drive over to the field because I'd be there if I was here. And it really shook me because I wasn't thinking of that. Everything I just told you about the games and all, I wasn't thinking about that, nothing. And I thought, oh, okay, fine. And I ran in the house, I got changed, I drove to the field, and guess what? All of his friends' parents were there, and we all went to all the old tailgating together. And it was such a great few hours that we spent together. And all of us, the team and all the parents, actually went over to Applebee's afterwards and had something to eat. And it was, and I was driving home, and it was 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And I'm saying, wow, if I didn't get that nudge, I would not have gone. I would have saved it for next week because I was tired and not feeling it. Sure. So you do have the presence of your loved one in your life well after they're gone. That happens to me a lot, by the way. And I know it does with you as well, Lisa.
What a wonderful story.
Yeah, I wanted to share that because it was kind of mind-blowing. I love when things happen like that, though, when you suddenly just get hit in the head and that's exactly how it happened. First, it was the wind. Then it was like, are you kidding me? I would be there. Get up and go. I heard his voice.
That's beautiful. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll see you next Monday.
We will. Take care, everybody.
Have a great week.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.